Alrighty, I would like to call the June 15th, 2015 Budget Committee meeting in order and start the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, as I noted, Mike Lang will be absent. Him and Dan Smith are both out of town, and Gail DeRocher Wentworth emailed me this morning and said she wasn't going to be able to attend, so those three are absent from tonight's meeting. So first, old business, approval of May 18th minutes. Could I have a motion to approve the minutes?
Motion to approve the minutes.
Second? Any amendments, anything you guys saw in there?
I have a couple.
Go ahead, Jeff.
So under agenda, it's got you as vice chairman. First
Got
words.
that one too. Good catch.
And then
Right under agenda.
it
Cross
has
off vice.
Vice chairman Dave Foltz.
Oh,
And then
I'm not used to it.
big paragraph on page 2, towards the bottom, it says, Mr. Foster asked what the increase would be to the dollars budgeted for contract renewal. Should say somewhere in there that that was transportation contract, just so people don't get the wrong idea.
Yep.
That's it.
Contract renewal. That was written for.
Yes.
Oh. Thank you.
Anyone else? I actually think you did a good job with all that information on that meeting.
it was
so
fantastic.
Good job.
Thank you.
All right. To accept the minutes as amended, can I get aye?
Aye.
Aye. Any nays? Any abstentions? I think we were all here, right? Okay. All right, then the next piece of business was to appoint the CIP representative. And ironically, he's not here, but Dan Smith actually did volunteer. He sent me an email and said he won't be at the meeting, but since we're going to compromise on the times, he would be more than happy to step in if no one else was going to enthusiastically volunteer. So he put his name in the hat. And Mike said that he could be the alternate as well. And it's not just because both of them are here that they get the short straw, but they actually both did volunteer. So can I get a motion to accept Dan Smith as our Budget Committee representative for the Budget Committee? CIP?
I'll make a motion.
Yeah.
I
Luke,
second.
second. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Unanimous. Thank you, Dan. Alternate. And then do I have a motion to accept Mike Lang as the alternate to the CIP
motion.
committee?
I will second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, I will get those to Diane and Kathy, and we are all set. And then since I think the majority of the people at the actual session were Budget Committee representatives for the Right to Know law, anything out of there that you guys wanted to discuss or anything like that tonight? It was a good turnout by the Budget Committee, so thank you all for showing up. Anything from that came out of it that you want to discuss or anything? Nope. Okay.
Straightforward.
It was pretty straightforward. Thank you, Steve, for holding. So without further ado then, Steve, why don't we go into
Budget?
the budget and update kind of on the town budget for
Sure.
the year.
Thank you. The chair asked me to sort of give an update where we are and where do we think we may be. You all received the revenue and expense report for the end of May. At that point in time, we had expended 88% of the budget, which we had about $704,285 remaining. That's about $50,000 higher than we were in the previous year. I asked the finance director to run the numbers for today, and this just shows you the difference that 2 weeks makes. We have $375,092 remaining. It's a payroll. So that's what you're seeing for those numbers in there. Or we've expended 94% of the operating budget. We're estimating at this point in time that we, let me change this a little bit. in the last few years, we've been able to turn money back to go into fund balance, undesignated fund balance at the end of the year. Just for comparison with the number I'm going to give you is in 2012, we turned back $504,305. 2013, we turned back $518,272. For 2014, we turned back $130,999. And as of today, we're estimating that for the fiscal year 2015, we're going to be turning back $48,043. This is 0.8%. The reasoning for this is simple. Well, two items really. One, we had a lot of snow this year, and we had to find places to take it. We had to pay for it. We're not even sure if we're going to receive 100% of what we requested for FEMA money back. This is taken into account if we do that. So we're tight, and we didn't go into a budget freeze. We did push off some things to the last quarter, just because we need to make sure we had the funds available. And so yeah, this is probably the tightest I've ever had in any of my budgets I've ever dealt with, of turning back 48. And the other big part is we're trimming the budget a lot. There's so many times we can say, well, you only spent X amount of money, until you don't have that anymore. And when we're at zero, understand that if we get to the point we're at zero, we start shutting things down in the future. So if for some reason I saw this coming in May and I was going to be over by 50,000, other things start getting cut. And it's not projects. It's usually we shut down services and those kind of items, because we just don't have project money either. When we put the money for projects in capital reserve funds, that's discretionary money that used to be able to take that difference and put against over expenses and services. Well, now it's in capital reserves, which is earmarked and stays in there. You can't take that money out and put it towards operational expenses. It's only for capital items. So it's just we're budgeting a lot tighter. However, I know it sounds all gloom and doom there. On the other side, for revenues, we're expecting to be over our revenue estimates by roughly $400,000, which is very good. We'll go back into the undesignated fund balance. It's primarily due to we sold a condo at the end of last year that we had for tax deeding. That was done at the end of last year, but it wasn't booked, and the sale wasn't done until after the first of the fiscal year, which is July 1, so into this fiscal year. Building permits are up, as well as we've seen a large increase in motor vehicle permits. We bumped all those numbers up, even in our budgeting this year, but we're just seeing a rather large uptick in those items. So we're doing fine with the budget. I have any questions or, yeah.
You mentioned snow removal. There was large amounts of snow across the street from the school.
Yes.
Were they gracious?
Yes.
They were?
Well,
Let me ask this question first.
Let me tell you
Can I ask
this.
this question first? Typically, in a heavy snow year, do we truck it out of town?
No.
We don't.
No,
We
our
have a-
first snow farm, our first snow farm is Beach Street, where
Okay.
the senior center is.
Yeah.
We filled that up, I would say, right after the first one.
Sure.
The trains couldn't get through.
The
that.
trains could get through. The superintendent and I have a good relationship. He indicated, I said, we need a snow farm centrally located, because if not, it's going to cost us in the long run, because we have to ship it out, and that's overtime. And I mentioned the Carpenter property for a location. He was a little iffy, but I then remembered that 2 acres of that is actually deeded to the town. And I said, I don't know which 2, but I'll figure it out. And the school did come around, and they were more than willing to work with us on that. And we're going to try to get in there and clean it up too, because there are some things that we may have picked up during the snowstorms that are in there. But no, they're very helpful on that. But no, our snow farm is Beach Street, and that was our backup one. And it was snow. We did have snow there well into May. So in case anybody was curious, we checked it out, and there was some snow in there.
I couldn't tell if it was snow or salt. and
Yeah,
chemicals.
I thought it was dirt and stuff,
Yeah.
but we went up and looked at it, and it was snow.
Wow.
So
So as far as the revenue, I mean, I know you've been talking about it all year, that it's been a really good year with revenue.
Yep.
How do you see, I mean, I know crystal balls and stuff like that, but do you see that trend kind of continue? And I know that you've been saying, like, the last couple of years, you've been seeing permits going up, you've been seeing some of that on the rise,
Yeah.
cars, all that. Do you kind of see that continuing, or?
As long as the economy stays somewhat healthy, yeah, people are buying new cars versus used cars. They're not, I think what you saw in the last, it's traditionally you always saw people bought new cars every 5 years.
Right.
If you look at the schedule, the last boom, the bubble broke in '08. So people really stopped buying cars, and they couldn't. You couldn't get loans because all the finance companies weren't giving out loans for cars, so people stopped. So they made sure their car, if they bought a car that year, that they were going to keep it longer, and the trend was about 7 years. This is 7 years from then. So you're seeing that starting to have an uptick a little bit. We're not seeing the high-end cars. Like, if early 2000s, people would trade in a Toyota for an Acura or a Mercedes or something like that. You're not seeing that kind of uptick. And you're not seeing a huge uptick in SUVs. So it's just people are replacing with same kind of cars or something similar.
How much revenue does the sale of that condo represent as far as the revenue?
That's about I want to say off the top of my head, it's between 150, 200,000.
Okay, so roughly, 30 to 40% of the overage.
Yep.
Which you can't really count on.
Nope.
There's no property that's being sold this
Right.
year. I mean. Okay.
Right, unless we find some, and that one was just because it was a building. If you had vacant property, that's usually not even close to that amount. So, but yeah, that's, my other thought would be, and I'm asking all departments to look at, is we need to do a fee schedule review to make sure our fees are in line with surrounding communities, and from everything from the price of garbage bags to the building permit fees to applications for different planning board and zoning board, et cetera. Because we just got to make sure we're fair. We make sure we're not, and at the same time, we got to make sure we're covering our costs that we need to be with our fees that we charge. So.
Dave, I have one question.
Go ahead.
It's actually on the budget. With Dave and I and Mike Lang being on it for a long time, we've always been taught to look at the bottom line, which is almost identical as last year. But also to ask questions when things stand out. Can you explain the Conservation Committee on the budget line? We budgeted $1,000. No, we budgeted $1,000, and now it was $13,000. That's the only thing that really stood out in the entire.
They had to get a part-time recording secretary. They didn't have one in the past, so that's most of it there. And I don't believe that. Yeah, they wouldn't have to use anything else, but that was
Okay.
That was it.
The other one that stood out was economic development.
We hired a consultant.
Yeah, what exactly was it for? I mean,
Yeah,
remember,
they did different phases. The first phase was we wanted to determine what would be, they were trying to figure out what did Newmarket want to have for businesses in town. And so the committee met, came up with some ideas, and then the second part of it, which was just completed, was, okay, looking at the land that we have, where could these businesses go, what's the best location, and what types of businesses fit best in there. And now the committee's going to make recommendations to the planning board to look at their zoning in some parcels, to change it to make it more palatable for businesses, or make sure the right businesses are in the right area. So that's where they are.
okay. So other than digging real deep, I guess the biggest question that I had is, obviously been on here, this is the third year we've been seeing the surplus just keep chipping away. How do you see that impacting budget for next year? I mean, do you see us having to do something a little different so it's not so tight?
No,
or-
I think the surplus itself is okay,
Okay,
especially if we're going to be adding the 400. One thing we've got to remember, and which I've been trying to change the mindset, and I think we're getting there, is in the past, we'd use the surplus to lower taxes. And you'd use it in October. And it would just be, if you don't have it the following year, you got to make the money up somehow, so the taxes spike again. So what we started doing is budgeting for the use of surplus in the operating budget. And we coincide the amount of surplus used usually with the amount of money we contribute to capital reserve funds. So that if for some reason we had to cut surplus, the use of surplus, you reduce the amount, or you can use tax dollars to contribute to the capital reserve fund. That won't impact the tax rate because you're not unless you add tax dollars in there, but you're also not going to impact services either. So you don't have to have that spike just to cover the services. You should be using it for one-time projects, not for the continual operations. So, but we should be okay in this coming year. And then hopefully the revenue continues up.
That's why I asked.
Yeah.
Anybody else with any other questions? Dive deeper or?
Anything at all? So, just to let you know, the auditors are here, they started today to get prepared for, because year end is June 30th for us as well. And, yeah, they will be coming back in, I believe, late July, early August to wrap that up. And we switched auditing firms this year. So it'll be interesting with a new set of eyes on the books to see what's going on there as well.
Okay.
I guess I just have one in the Economic Development Committee. We said we hired consultants.
Yep.
Are there any assurances that the work they did this year is complete and final and won't need
Yeah,
to
that's
be repeated?
Unless the planning board wants just, they put it on the shelf, which that's any kind of consulting situation that could happen. No, their work is complete and done with the recommendation from almost. Last week we got one more email between the committee and the consultant to wrap up one more item. So, but it's wrapped up and done.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
And is there a way to tell where the money came from? So if we pulled it, if the overage has to come from somewhere, do we know?
Yeah,
where that was?
I don't have that in front of me. There was last week at the council meeting, we do the year-end transfer of funds between departments. If we find savings in other areas, we transfer them to the ones that need that.
Mhm.
For example, I think that some that were under, police was under, fire was under, I believe assessing was under. So what they do is they take those funds and they transfer it over the departments that need it. It's just an accounting situation. But that's usually what we do. One thing we're going to do and report this year, though, in the operating budget is the finance director is going to include a column with, basically it's going to be the pre-transfer amount. Because what you're doing also is you're not actually showing what's being expended. If you have a department that keeps over-expending this line year after year, but we're funding it from somewhere else that's under-expending, you can see what's actually going to be, what's going on there versus, oh, it broke even. Both of them broke even at the end. So,
Yeah. So, just so the numbers are out there, you said the snow removal was in part where some of the overrun was. What was I just don't have it in front of me. I remember it being somewhere close to 30 or 31.
I believe we're up to, the one blizzard was about 43. That was the first one. That was the one we received FEMA funding for. The second one, which we did not, it wasn't as high, but I believe we're probably total about 50 to 60,000. So
In addition to what
in
was
addition,
budgeted?
right.
Yeah, okay. And what comes back from FEMA, do we know?
75% of that initial 40, but we're still haggling back and forth on how much of that 40 is allowed.
Gotcha.
So if we don't get that 75%, that's a
hit.
That's a hit.
Yeah.
Wow. When do you think we'll have an idea of when they'll,
Well,
guess the government.
The finance director earmarked that as expended. If we get something back, then it's surplus, it's additional revenue.
That was what I was going to.
Yeah. We didn't want to play that game and risk it. So, but we probably also wouldn't hear till after the beginning of the first fiscal year, so we'd have to book it in the following year.
Yeah, that was a hit. So I guess the only the question that I had, just on my list is, obviously at the town council, we saw chiefs here get up. How is that going to impact the rest of this year? Is that going to impact
Nope.
next year at all?
It shouldn't impact this year. That was earmarked, so we
Okay.
use that as an expense of the $50,000 for the merit pool. That was held off. We didn't spend it because by the time we were about to, we were starting to get hit, and we weren't sure exactly where we were going to end with the fiscal year. So we are going to distribute the merit pool. We do have a couple weeks left, and our intention to make it retroactive. What the chief was discussing was actually there's two different parts of this. One is the merit pool, which employees get for merit, what they've done correct. The second part would be the which is the salary survey or personnel rules. That is the pay schedule for all the employees. What it does is you take I was going to say town administrator, but town administrator is not included in it. You take a position like an administrative assistant. You compare what her duties are in Newmarket to surrounding the labor market as well as communities our size, and you come up with a scale for where that employee would fall. The chief mentioned the other night, I have to correct it, that it was 2010 was the last time it was done. It was actually 2005. So it was actually during the good times, it was the last time we had one of these done. After looking at the personnel policy, it does say that the town needs to update it every 3 years, and the town administrator needs to propose one, or his designee. So the finance director is currently working on one. So that would be in the next year's operating budget, if there are any changes that are necessary. The changes that I'd look at would be, where does the position fall as a comparison? Where does it fall with if it's supervisor, where does it fall compared to where their employees are? But also making sure that they're not at the top. If they're just starting their job, nobody should be at the top, because then you have no place you can go. And making sure that they're being fairly compensated as in comparison for other communities. That's what a salary survey is, and that's the one that hasn't been done for since 2005. I think it was probably, if you look at the history, it was probably suspended when the budget started getting tight. 2005, 2006, 2007, that's when the bad economy started. 2008 is when it fell. And
2009 was the big tax. Ugh.
Right,
Here.
and then nobody wanted to touch it after that again. But yeah, it was 2005 was the last time a salary survey was done. So far, the company that did it no longer does them, so that's why we're doing them in-house. So, plus, we wouldn't have the funds to do it, hire a consultant to do it.
Okay. So we need to do the salary survey as well. I mean, didn't we just do the negotiations with the police? I mean,
Union is not included in the
right,
salary
so union's
survey.
not in the salary survey, it's
Right.
just everybody.
This
But we
is
just did
everybody
that
else.
this,
Yep.
right, okay.
Yeah. So, yeah, they'll have their first year of their collective bargaining agreement starting on July 1.
Okay, that's what I thought.
Yep.
Okay. That's all I got. Anybody else? You're getting off easy.
Yeah, I tried.
So you basically see about a 40,000.
We're
is
about
what's left
there right
over.
now, unless there's some reduction in spending or not going fake
I was
wood.
gonna say.
Something huge doesn't happen. Looking at, yeah.
Okay.
So just hold your breath for the next 2 weeks.
Now, this year, we were also doing, I know you were going to do like the survey of the roads and all that kind of stuff.
We're going to start that on July 1. The university, we were going to look at doing a private consultant. Again, funds weren't there, and it was just not going to, it was going to be too expensive. UNH does do it, and I talked to the director of the T-Square program. He's going to start on July 1. They're going to come in. They may not reinvent the wheel. They're going to look at the one they did in 2012, update it. And one thing I said was, I need a more realistic plan. Even if you tell me, this is what you should be doing. You should be spending $400,000 a year. I said, well, you can tell us that we should be spending $400. Well, what can I get for $250? So, and they understand that, and I guess it's going to be a new system too as well. That's going to be on the cloud, that the university got some grants to do that, and we'll be the first community to go through that, so, yeah. They're more than willing to do it, and he's gonna start after the first of the year. And I think it's their fiscal year as well, so.
So what else, is there anything else that starts up like July 1st? I know, like the water.
Yeah, we have I signed, last Wednesday I was in here, and I signed contracts that were literally this thick for the construction of the wastewater treatment plant. That will start in July. The well, we are hoping to come to an amicable agreement on that shortly, so we can bring that project forward for the McIntosh well. You're going to see more construction on Route 108. Some of it on the southern part, because we're going to be upgrading the water line in that area, as well as the widening of the northern part by the state for the bike lanes and the final pavement there. We have started soliciting for bids, and they're due next week, or I believe it's next week or this week, for the transportation improvements for the downtown, which originally was going to be the Sky Bridge, and now it's a series of crosswalks and bump outs and realigning the crosswalks so they're not as diagonal across the street and further across. They're going to be straight across and shorter. Brick inlays, better lighting, bump outs to slow down traffic, reduction of the speed limit, those kind of items in downtown. That should be, if we get the bids in and open them, we're hoping this fall that will start. And the fall will be about the same time as we do the regular paving and what we can do. And the Public Works Director is going to come in with numbers from the 2012 study, show where he is, and then where he falls with what we're doing now. Basically, what we're doing is Ash Swamp Road was like the big one. We haven't been able to do it in the year we wanted to, so he takes that, puts money towards it, takes a small amount to try to get some of the smaller roads done. In the meantime, I think what other big projects we have coming up?
I'm just asking because it seems like this coming year is going to be a
Yeah, we have a lot of projects, stuff you may not see, but yeah, the wastewater treatment plant's going to be huge for the next 3 years, so that'll be the big one.
Okay. Anything else? Larry, go ahead.
I just want to go back to the original UNH road maintenance study. Have we actually, I realize there are expectations for us to spend a lot more money than we
Yeah.
had available to do. Were we actually following their recommendations?
We were following them in the aspect that the one project that we have been doing has been taking so much of the money that if we followed what they said, we probably would have gotten it done in 1 year because it was a couple $100,000.
Sure, just an over.
We've been doing it over, yeah. So that's the problem. We just don't have the same amount that they recommend that we put in. But it's, like I said, though, he tries to do the big one and try to knock off some of the smaller ones that he could do with what's left over. So, but yeah, for the larger projects, yes, he's been following it.
We're still getting the squeaky wheel calls, obviously.
Yeah, but I mean, we don't, if it's something that's viable for the squeaky wheels, then we'll get out there, but it's not, they're on the list like everybody else, and we're trying to get there. It's where we are, and we don't have enough money to pave every road every year, so.
All right. I'm
All
good.
set?
Thanks,
Thank
Steve.
you. Thanks, Steve. Do you need me to stay or all set?
I don't think so. I think
Okay.
we can lock up.
Thanks
I don't have a
for
key, but we're all good, right?
You'll be fine.
All right. Thank you. Okay, so it's quick. Okay, so as far as other business for next meeting dates, we're taking July off because I think there's a lot of vacations and all that going on. It's summer and enjoy it, and yeah. Greg White from the Lamprey Center asked to speak with us in August to kind of talk with us a little bit more about what they do and everything, so that like what happened in January, we have a little bit more information with the budget and stuff like that. So he reached out to me through Steve and asked if he could come and talk to the budget committee about kind of what they do. So he'll come in August and talk to us. I'm going to try to connect with him before then, so I kind of know what he wants to talk about. But obviously, with the vote for the transportation in January, he wants to kind of talk with us and just inform us a little bit more so that we know going into budget season. So the next meeting that I have on the calendar is August 24th, which is the last Monday, second to last Monday. Probably the week school starts back up again. So as far as August and September, what I kind of see is just kind of getting primed and ready. And then October is when the fun will start to begin. And then it'll get crazy in November and December, but, August and September will be just more of kind of getting ready for what's coming, and then I think we're gonna have a lot on our plate just by watching the school board and the town council and stuff like that, so it looks like there'll be a lot of stuff to review with the budget, so enjoy your summertime, because we'll be going into full mode once we get into September, so,
Can you reiterate, like, when you talk full mode, when we're talking October, November, how, I just commitment-wise, as far as time-wise?
right now, I'll tell you, like,
Yeah.
October, it will be just one meeting. It'll just
Okay.
be, the biggest thing that I would tell you guys in October especially is really watching the school board. I mean, I know some of you guys go to a lot of the meetings and stuff like that, but watching the school board and the town council meetings, just to start seeing, because they're starting to put their budgets in place, so the more you kind of know coming into it, we'll be fine. And then November, really, it's kind of the last 2 Mondays of the month to be ready, and then December, probably 3 Mondays, but it really doesn't go crazy for us until the end of November. Knocking on fake wood.
But count on five meetings.
Yeah, I would
between
count on
November
those
and
5
December.
meetings unless they go really, really well. Last year, I think some of them went really smooth, but I think we still had 5.
Okay.
Because one of them will be a hearing, like will be the public hearing for the town budget, and then the beginning of January, we'll do the town hearing for the school budget like we did last year.
Thank you.
Yep. Anything else? Any other business you guys want to discuss? All right, that was short and sweet. Do I have a motion for adjournment?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We are adjourned. Just need to call down to
I can remember that number.
1.